Hello, I am Ahmed Hassan, 3D environment artist at Ubisoft, and today I am excited to start this first season on Vertex Maestro. We will do this sci-fi motorcycle. I already talked briefly about the details of this motorcycle, so in this video we will just prepare the scene. We will talk about few details, get ready, get familiar with the 3ds Max if you are new to it. If not, then this is just a warm-up to set up the scene, set up the blueprints. So the only thing that you need for this part of the video or this part of the series is to download the blueprint for the motorcycle. So you can search for it. We will be working on the ZX14R blueprint, so 2013. You can search for it, you can find any blueprint that works best for you. I went with this demo version. It's more than enough for me because I need only the outlines of the motorcycle. We will do the details on our own. So this should be good to go. So we will quickly mention how to navigate 3ds Max if you're completely new to the software. And then we will talk about how can we set up the scene, how can we prepare everything for our project. We will talk a little bit, some details about the tire size, how can we convert that to 3D shape. So let's warm up with this one and let's get going. So in this chapter, I will talk about 3ds Max basics. I did already record 3ds Max basics for like 1 hour, 30 minutes, but it got a little bit boring. So I believe in learning with practice, not just showing off tools, names. It will be overwhelming and it will be confusing. So I prefer to teach you while doing practice. So I will just mention briefly the most important tools or the most frequent tools that I will be using. So this is 3ds Max viewport. For me, it's really simple. Doesn't have much. I tried to keep everything to the default for the toolbar. If you want to show or hide anything, you just right click on the toolbar and you choose whatever you need here. So for me, I did show access constraint. This is very important. I will talk about it a little bit later when we need it. Other than that, everything is on default. This button here will maximize the viewport. For controls, you have in 3ds Max, the middle mouse button, the mouse scroll, is the really important one. Like if you want to start working 3ds Max, if you are new to 3ds Max, you need a good middle mouse button. So to pan, you press the scroll and you just move like so. And to rotate, you just press the middle mouse button with Alt and move mouse. There you go. And if you want to zoom precisely, you can do it with Alt Control and the middle mouse button. Then you will zoom in and out. And you can also use the scroll to zoom in and out. That basically all what you need to navigate 3ds Max. You most likely will have the UI like this. I have widescreen, so I have enough space to do it double tap or double window. You have your primitives here. I will be mostly use this panel. Like there are a lot of other options. You can experiment with them. Nothing will break 3ds Max, so you can just test all of these if you want. But mostly, or for the beginning, we will be using the standard primitive, mostly the plane and the other shapes. So to create these shapes, you can click drag and move your mouse. Then once you are happy with the shape, you can just release the left click. For the 3D shapes, like boxes, the first click and drag will do width and length. And once you're happy with that, you release left mouse button and then move the mouse up and down without clicking anything. Once you're happy with the size and scale, you click again, left click, and you're good to go. As you see, the box or any button pressed will be highlighted with this color. If you do click again, you will create more shapes. So to exit this mode, you right click anywhere in the viewport, and now your left click is the select normal left click behavior. So that's actually basically all you need to start working in 3ds Max. One more note: to modify the shape, or if you want to see the wireframe, let's say first you want to hide this grid, you press G on the keyboard and it's hidden. Then you press F4 on the keyboard, you will see your wireframe. You can also do that here, show or hide the edge faces. If you want to configure the settings for any object, you go to the modifier list. So for the modifier list, you have the settings. You will see different settings for every asset. So for the plane, we have the segments, length, and width. If you want to zero out any value in 3ds Max, you right click on these small arrows if you have like any number. And if you want to go to the minimum number, you right click, and there you go. So to adjust, okay, most likely you will not see these buttons here. You will see it like so if you just install 3ds Max. So to show quick buttons here, just for quicker workflow, first you show buttons, and then to add or modify these, you click here and configure modifier set. So I use this quite often. You can find the same ones, like you see I have turbo smooth here. You press T on the keyboard, you found the turbo smooth, you click, drag, and assign it anywhere you like. If you want more buttons, you can do it like so, or you can remove. You can have the ones that you are using most frequently. So these are the important stuff here. If you want to modify any mesh or change the shape, you add edit poly to it. If you don't see it here, you can add it again, or you can find it from the list. You search for edit and you choose edit poly. You have your selection modes. So from edge, you can select edge, vertex, you can select the points, and you can move them up and down. For your gizmos, the selection modes, you can find them or change them here. So to rotate, scale, and move. These three are the most frequent ones. So you have also the shortcuts: W to move, E to rotate, and R to scale. So let's do it like that. R, scale. If you want to scale on one axis, you can select that axis when it's highlighted in yellow color. So it means it's the one activated. And or you can scale on all axes. You can press E to rotate and W to move. You can move on multiple axes or on single axis or all axes at the same time. Next, the layer stack here, it has priority. So whatever you have first, it will be taken into consideration. So if you want to duplicate or make new polygons, you can do so by selecting any edge and then shift, click, drag, shift, click, drag, and there you go. If you add any other modifier on top of this edit poly, now you have the turbo smooth as the latest, and the result will be shown for the latest modifier. If you go back to this one and change, you need first to hide the latest modifier. Then when you show it, you will see the difference. You can, of course, do it without hiding anything, but for that you need to do one small thing, and that is to show cage. When you show cage, it will show like a preview of the lower layer. So if you hide this, you will see that this line is here, and you can actually now select it and move. I need you, if you are complete new to 3ds Max, I need you to replay this chapter more than one time. You practice more on the 3ds Max viewport. Just feel comfortable with it. Just add these layers, select the edge and move it, shift and click drag. Just make any random shapes. Just get comfortable with the software. And believe me, you should be good to go. I know it might look really complicated, but once you feel comfortable navigating 3ds Max and just doing these random shapes, because all the complicated shapes, everything start like that. Just get comfortable with it, and then we will get into details a little bit later. I will show you all these steps. I will try to make things as clear as possible and not boring. So get comfortable with the software, and I will see you in the next chapter. This is the end result of today's practice and preparation. If you want to save time, if you want to cut the video and just get to the end result, if you don't care about the details and the reasons behind the information that I will be showing, you can watch the blueprint first, how we set up the blueprint without looking at the box and at these tubes. You can skip that part with all the information. You can just skip it to make it to the blueprint, how to set up these blueprints. And for the tires, you can just create a tube and you align it to the blueprint as close as possible, and you don't need to care about the numbers, the sizes, and how to compare everything to anything else. So I just wanted to keep this here, just in case you don't care about the deep or the concrete details, the reasons behind everything. So let's get started from scratch right now. So after learning the basics, let's actually start learning by practice. This is what I believe in, and I hope that will work for you the best. So we will do a box to represent the scale of the motorcycle, so we will work as close as possible to the real scale. We don't need to make it like by the millimeter, but we need to make it as close as possible for better materials, better UV unwrapping, better rendering, and if we want to do some VFX later in the future, maybe, but it's always best to use the real scale if possible. Or if you have any imaginary design, try to make it as close as possible to the real scale, even if it was going for a game or something. So what we have here is the motorcycle dimensions, the real one. So we have length, width, and height. Let's put this aside. And let's create a box to represent approximately the scale of the motorcycle. So we have, this is in millimeters, we have the settings in centimeters. So if we go to customize, unit setup, system unit setup, 1 unit is 1 centimeter. So 66 here means 66 centimeters. And we can keep these generic units. We don't need to add the centimeter here. We just know that 1 is 1 centimeter. So we have this 217. So 217, and the width is 77, and the height is 117. So approximately this is the size of the motorcycle. Next, as a little bit more complicated step, I wanted to do it based on the blueprint that we have, which is this one. We can have this motorcycle on that box, and we just approximately create the wheel, but I want you to know a little bit more professional ways how to do that, just in case if you wanted to have the precise dimensions and scale. So now we are working only to block out the scene, just block out, just getting ready, preparing. So we can have a tube and E to rotate, and we can also toggle the angle snap, this one, or by pressing A or by clicking on it to have 5 degrees increments. So now it's not 90. We can just keep it on any location now. To know the size of the tire exactly, to explain that, you have inner radius and you have outer radius, this one. And you have this area as the tire thickness, wall height, and the tire tread thickness, which is this side. So for the front tire, we have 120 on 70, then ZR17. The ZR17 is the inner radius of the tire, the area that is in contact with the wheel. And the outer radius is the area that contacts the ground, and this is the thickness. So we have 120, that means 12. So that's 12 centimeters. And the inner radius, this is not the radius. The 17 is the diameter. So, and it's in inches, so that's 17 inch. So to make this clear, this is explanation about the tire size and details. We don't need this H and 98. This is for the real tires. What we want in design are only these 3 information. So this is the width, which is the tread. And then we have the profile, which is the percentage width to the radius. And we have the R, and this is radius, is the radius of the inner side of the tire that touches the wheels. So to make it even more clear, I'm showing it this way. So this is the diameter, the outer diameter, the area that is in touch with the ground. And this is the inner diameter, which is represented by this value in inches. And we have the radius. In 3ds Max, we use radius. Radius is half of diameter. So this is just the most simple math. It starts from the center of the circle and goes all the way to the edge. So we have inner radius and we have the outer radius. It starts from the outer edge to the center of the circle. So I'm making this to make it as clear as possible. So now, since this is a clear example, we can go back to our dimensions. So the inner side, let's do a unit conversion. Let's use the calculator and we do length and then 17. So 17, that's 43.18 centimeters. This is the diameter, the area from the top to the other top. We need it to be half. So we divide that by 2. So we divide that by 2. And now this is our inner radius. This is the inside the inner radius. Now we need to know how to calculate the outer radius. From this information, it's divided by 70. So this is the simple equation to calculate that. So side wall height. Now we don't have 50, we have 70. We divide that on 100 and multiply that by the thread width. So that means we have this value. Now we need just to memorize this, we will copy it. Now we have the 70 divided by 100, that is 0.7, and we multiply that by the tire width, which is 120 millimeters, which is 12 centimeters. That's 8.4. So to calculate the distance, we just add this value to the inner radius. So this one plus, and now we have our outer radius, this one. Now we have exactly the correct tire size. So we have that made. Now we will create the rear. We copy items, assets in 3ds Max by shift click drag, and we need a copy because we need different size. The rear wheel is 190 width, it's wider, so that's 19 centimeters. The inner radius is the same, so that's still the same, but the outer radius is different. So it means the side wall is a little bit shorter because the tire is a little bit wider. So we can calculate that again. We have 0.5. We multiply that by 19, the tire width, and we have 9.5. So 9.5, we add it to the inner radius, 21.59, and we have our outer radius now. And now we have our rear and front wheel exactly the correct size. Now next we need to maybe center this pivot point. The pivot point is something like the center of mass of an object. So if we have it, if we still have it here and we rotate, the object will rotate around it. And if we want to rotate it forward, it will spin like if the motorcycle is moving forward or backwards. Let's say we want to change this center of mass or like the pivot point. We can go to the hierarchy menu from here, then effect pivot only, and we can change the pivot side to wherever we want. And once we are happy with the new location, we can click again on the effect pivot only, and we will have this. So it will rotate like that or like that, just in case that was your purpose. But we don't want that. We want to have in the center of the tire. So we go to center object, and it's the same for this one, center of object. Now it's in the correct location. Next, we need to know the exact correct distance between the front tire and the rear tire. So to do that, we will see in our information there is the wheelbase. So that means the distance from the center of the front wheel to the center of the rear wheel. And I'm sorry, when I'm saying wheel, I mean the tire, like the rubber tire. So it's kind of the same thing if you are talking about the location of them. So it's, if we convert this to centimeters, so that's 148.1. So to know the exact distance, we can have a measure guide. To have the measure guide, we can use just a plane, and the length of the plane is 148.1. So this is the distance between the tires. We need to align this tire exactly at the edge of this measure or the guide. And the rear wheel, we need to align it exactly with this side. To do that perfectly correct, we need to enable the Vertex snap tool. So to do that, we can activate it from here. Snap toggle. We right click on this, and we make sure that only Vertex is selected. If you just install 3ds Max, or if you didn't work on this tool before, maybe you have the grid point selected or something else. So you need to uncheck all of them except Vertex. So once Vertex is selected, you can close the window and enable the toggle by clicking on it or pressing S on the keyboard. I will be using this frequently, so the shortcut for that is S. So when it's on now, you need to make sure that this toolbar or this menu is enabled. You can find it, maybe you don't have it now, you can find it by right-clicking on the toolbar and choosing axis constraints. You can find it here, it will be, instead of this, it will be here. If it's unchecked, you'll find it right here. So now once it's activated, it will be something like that. So you'll need to click here on this one with the magnet, and then you can select which axis. Because if you don't have this selected, you can't choose single axis. You will move it along all axes at the same time. Sometimes you don't need that. So it's better for you to keep this always checked. If you want to move the whole wheel and align it with this measure guide, you can click on this circle, so you can move the object freely on all of the 3 axes, and then you just get it to this vertex. Once it's green, it means the snap is on, and you can release the left click mouse button. You can do the same thing for the rear wheel. So if you click on one axis, you will move it on that axis only. But for now, we might want to just move all the assets to that grid. So now they are perfectly aligned to each other, and they are also in the correct distance from each other, exactly as in the real motorcycle. So now we don't need this anymore. We can hide it. And we can turn off the snap toggle now. You see this plus sign. When you see it, it means that the snap is on. When you don't see it, it means it's off. So let's turn it off by pressing S. And there you go. Now try to keep these assets always on the same distance. Like, you need to move them together so you don't change the distance between each other. Now the next step is, maybe we can move that a little bit closer as on the real motorcycle. Now we can use our reference. So to use our reference in 3ds Max, let's just create a plane, and we can now drag and drop the image reference to that plane. And this is the easiest and quickest way. So we can rotate it. Next, we need to make sure that the plane size represents the actual image size, which is 550 by 630. So this is 630 and 550. Now we can scale it down, and we try, if you want to make any assets transparent in 3ds Max, you can select that asset and Alt X. So that means it's now transparent. If you want to make it solid again, you click on it again and Alt X again. So we want to have it transparent now, and we try to put the motorcycle inside the box to make sure that our scale is correct. If the scale is not correct, it means something is wrong. Now we will scale the reference image to match that box as close as possible. It will not be 100% precise, but it will be really close to the real scale. You can press L on the keyboard to go to left side, and you will see this. You can press F3 on the keyboard to toggle between the wireframe and the color, solid color, default shading. We don't need the grid now. To hide the grid, G on the keyboard. The grid is gone. So we can show the wireframe so the box is a little bit more visible. We can F4 on the keyboard. We see that. Let's try to move the pivot of this plane to somewhere to the center of the wheel. So when we want to scale it up and down, it will be scaled up and down from the wheel location. So it will be easier for us to match it to the real scale with the box that we created. So to do that, again, to the hierarchy, Effect Pivot Only, we press W and move the pivot as close as possible to the center of the wheel. It doesn't have to be perfectly precise, it's just as close as possible to make the work a little bit easier. Click Effect Pivot Only again to confirm. And then this is the way how we can scale it now. It's a little bit more comfortable. So let's try to match the reference to the box that we created, because the box represents the real scale of the motorcycle. So that looks about right. The scale is okay now. Now let's try to check the wheel position. So it's almost there. That's not bad. This means we are on the right path. At this moment, it's up to you to stay exactly within the real dimensions, or you can modify a little bit to fit your need. At this moment, we don't need this box anymore, because we know that the scale now is correct. The reference scale is correct now, so we can hide that at the moment. We don't need to remove it just yet. We can keep it, but just hidden. And let's try to match the tires. We can also make the tires transparent. Now we can modify the size a little bit. I will increase the outer radius a little bit and decrease the inner one to make it match the tire on the reference. And we change the scale a little bit here also. Now we should be good to go scale wise. So what we need to do next is we will cut the blueprint and fit it all together and prepare everything else. So to do that, we can show edges, and now we can make it edit poly. We add edit poly, then we add edge. You can add any edge by Alt and number 1 on the keyboard. Once you press Alt and number 1, you will see this edge highlight. Once you are closer to already existing edge, you can see that. So we need to have like an edge here, and then we add another edge right here. Also another edge somewhere here. We should be good now. We can change to the polygon and remove the unnecessary part. This one we don't need anymore. We can add one more edge here because we don't need the bottom part. Can remove that as well. And now we can detach all of these to make them separate assets. So we can do that by clicking here, detach, and keep the default name for the moment. We will rename them in a second. Then select the other one, detach again, and then select this one, detach. Okay, so now we have 5 new objects. We can toggle the layers. We can select all of them. Then from here, rename, and we can just make them some good, better name than random name. So we can call it ref, then underscore and numbered. So now ref 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Now we need to align all of these exactly where they should be. So let's do that first with the front side, so the front of the motorcycle. Okay, let's change the pivot point for all of these. So to do that, we can select all of them. We can go to Effect, Pivot, and Center to Object. Click again to confirm. Now we can rotate this because this is the front side. We rotate it to the front and move it to the front. Then this is the rear side. We can rotate it to the back 90 degrees. And we can move it here as well. And then we have, this is the top part. We rotate it upwards. And since the motorcycle is facing that direction, we can move it to that side. 180 degrees. Let's just isolate these for this moment. We will work on this a little bit later. So now let's fit them in their right position. So this one has to be exactly in the center. And then we need to match the details. So let's first do it with the most obvious part, which is the lowest point of the front wheel. And we need to align it with the lowest point of the front wheel and the other reference. So there you go. Now everything else should align just fine. So if you see this, the tip point here, and this point needs to be a little bit, just tiny bit lower. And also we can check the mirror or the windshield edge, which is this point. We can try to move it to the side. They fit. And we can also check with the mirror. It looks fine. Sometimes just tiny bit, like few millimeters difference, shouldn't be a big problem, should be okay. We can, of course, in another time, we can adjust it a little bit more. So the handlebar is also in the correct position. For the front part, we should be good to go. Now, if we move it up and down, we will ruin our alignment left and right. Also, it's not good, but we can move it freely forward and backward without any problem. So we can just move it now here. We will come back to it later. Now we can do the same thing exactly for the rear side. So we'll try to make it on the middle. And then let's find some point to match. And we can start also with the rear wheel lowest point. So the lowest points of the tire, they are matching to each other now. Next we have, let's see, the highest point of the back seat cover. And if you see, this is like the most rear end of the motorcycle, this one. And here it does match perfectly fine. So we should be good to go. We can do any other more test. We can do it with the mirror again. So this is the rear side of the mirror. Okay, something is not right. Yeah, you see the image is not perfectly rotated. So you can, okay, now should be good. And the mirror is fitting perfectly. So we can move that to the side again. Now we can fit the top part. And we can also do that with the most rear part of the rear seat cover. And let's make sure it's in the center. Okay, this one fits. The seat fits just fine. And the windshield also fits perfectly fine. The mirrors fit exactly how we want them to. So this one could be in the lower part. That's good. The front is fine. So the last thing is the other side. That could be a little bit tricky because it shouldn't face that way. It should face this way. So by checking the reference, if you get confused, we will see that the left side is this one, and the right side is where the engine is visible, and clutch. So it means this is correct, this is the left side, and this is the right side of the motorcycle. We can do that also by aligning height-wise with the front. And for the rear as well. So height-wise, it fits perfectly fine now. We just need to fit it with the top part of the motorcycle. To save or remember the height that is already confirmed, we can do that by just copying this value. And now we can push it a little bit down. We align it with this side of the motorcycle. Okay, now it looks correct. We can paste the height value again, and it should be good now. Yeah, you see, now it looks almost perfect. Now it should be good to go. Now I'm happy with it. So for the position, location of the blueprint, we should be good to go. We can move these references from side to side without any problems. But since we have two different sides of the motorcycle, there can be a little bit of issues, but we can work on one side and then we create the exact similar parts in the beginning. And then once we get to the clutch and the engine and the other parts that doesn't look the same from one side to the other, we should be in a good stage at that time to work without the much need of the references. We just need to have our main base shapes first. So we can select both of them and we can push them aside this direction to move the side reference. It's totally fine. And now we can say, only now, we are ready to actually start working on the motorcycle. But now at least we know everything will align perfectly. We will not have any issues regarding size, scale, and location of everything. I will show you a small example about how will we work on this motorcycle, and we will continue on the next part. So from the left view, we can create a plane. Let's say we will start on the gas tank. We make just one plane like so. We add edit poly on it, we make it transparent, and we go to the vertex mode. We find a starting point. Then we can change to the top view. If you go to any viewport for the first time, you will see it on the wireframe mode, so F3. And then maybe we go back to the perspective mode. We just want to move these ones a little bit to the side. Then F4 to have our edges. What we need now is to have these center points on the 0 location, 0x. So we will right click here. So this is the central line of 3ds Max. It will be easier for us to do the symmetry and do other details later. So it's better to have the starting point on the center of the viewport. And now we can select these references, the front, rear, center, and we can move them also to the center. So this should be good to go. And now we can work with a peace of mind. So this is how will we start doing the motorcycle. Now the scene is ready, the references are ready, everything is in a good shape at the moment. So the next video we will start working on the motorcycle as a base shape. We will not do crazy details on the next video, but we will try as much as possible to create the base shapes of the motorcycle from front to back. So I hope you learned something today. I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you in the next video.